The best of all worlds is endangered by the indicators we use to observe the well-being of the planet or humankind. We've never been living in better times than at the moment. But we all have a sense of unease that this is probably not the case. There are many futures. It's not only one future, one inevitable, inescapable future coming our way, and we're preparing for it. The inescapability of AI makes that pretty clear. We're looking at a present where the technological advancement comes back to us and raises all the old philosophical questions. What does it mean to be a human being, for example? Or what is learning? Or what is intelligence? We have to go back and rediscover who we actually are as human beings. And we may find out that we do not only have a head and hands, but also a heart. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them, said Albert Einstein. The thinking that created the present, that what brought us here, won't bring us there. We need to venture the thinking that embraces the heart as well. Technology is not a driver. At best, it's an accelerator. It always starts with people having an idea. It never starts with the technology. As Jim Collins, the management educator, in his seminal book, Good to Great, stated, technology is only an accelerator. Everything else has to come first. First, we need to judge our ideas, whether they further the common good, whether they come from the heart, or if they're just there to make more money out of money. The United Nations came up with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, calling for projects to make the world a better place. But what is this better? And what is actually the world? Amazingly enough, the American Army came up with a concept, reintroducing in their education that the world is actually VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Oh, this is reintroducing common sense. We all know this is the world we are living in. But our concepts, our maps, have suggested the world is not complex, it's linear, or we can reduce complexity and make it a blueprint which we just have to deploy. I'm a cybernetician and a system scientist. Cybernetics is the art of navigation. It goes back to the Greek word of Kubernetes, which is the steersman of a ship, the navigator. And we look at governance, which has the same root. It's all about navigating a state, navigating a business, navigating ourselves into the future. And therefore, we need better maps. If we look at futures, if we look at the disciplines that are concerned with future, we have three. We have the forecast, looking at data from the past to get an idea of what the future may look like. The other discipline is foresight. You know that very well. This is scenarios. Yes, there are many possible futures, and we can decide. And this is the third discipline, anticipation. Not only looking what may come or what different scenarios we can think of at the moment, but proactively taking our responsibility in the present. What future do we want to create? Because we all know the best way to predict the future is to create it as well. At the European School of Governance, we have a working title for it. It's Anthropocene Thinking. And you may read more about this at the blog of the European School of Governance. It brings together three traditions, or three schools: systems and cybernetics as the backbone of complexity sciences. Yes, the world is VUCA, so we need some thinking that meets it accordingly, that knows about the power of context and emergence, which leads to a whole that is different and more than the sum of its parts. Integral theory, looking at the individual and the collective moral and cognitive development. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are not reinventing the world over and over again. It would be as intelligent as reinventing the wheel over and over again. We need to reach out and integrate. The further our integration travels, the richer the common good. And theories of resonance, which inform us about a quality of relationship that starts with ourselves. We can be in tune with ourselves, with our heart, our thinking, our being. We can start to love ourselves. And on that basis, we can be in tune with other people, the family, with the work colleagues, with all the people that we meet, be in tune with them. And we can be collectively and individually be in tune with nature. Learn to reappreciate nature again as we go and enjoy a garden, the ocean, a forest. An artist from the European School of Governance, and we know not only have scientists, but also artists, because we believe that they are the source of inspiration for furthering our thinking. Princess Gaia and the Diary of the World, if you like to refer to, is the perspective of the living world on humankind. And what would Mother Earth tell us at this very moment to be aware of, to not endanger our future and open up perspectives for true well-being? Technology is only 1/3 of the pie, says the Canadian management philosopher Noel Tichy. He says all organizational aspects have three dimensions to them. A technical perspective. This is what we learn in school. Technology, the law, rules, regulations, and the lot. Only 1/3. The other 2/3 are political and cultural dimensions. Political as mitigating all these different interests that come together when people come together. Informing each other, trying to find common ground or engage in a battle. And cultural aspects as our beliefs of how we think the world works, how it ticks, what it is made of, and what we can expect from it. Another surprise, competition is overrated. We heard a lot of words about competition in the course of the day. Yes, but what do we know about competition? We go back to the works of James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis, the Gaia hypothesis, the interconnectedness of everything with everything, and the symbiotic planet. Evolution does not connotate with competition. Whenever we see an ecosystem which is dominated by competition, it is locked in. It doesn't develop. It only develops if species learn to benefit from each other, to get into symbiosis, to know that the output of the one species is the input to the other species, nourishing for the other one, and vice versa. Even our bodies are holobionts, which says a lot of cells, a lot of bacteria living in us, living on us, and make us viable. We couldn't do without. We are not machines. We are ecosystems in ourselves. Civilization is based on cooperation, collaboration. And where does it come from? Does it come from strong leaders? Does it come from the law of the jungle? No. It comes from the beta player, the B players, getting together to not be dominated in the one-on-one situation by the A player. The collaboration of the many makes a civilization, makes an organization, and decides whether we succeed or not. And the larger and broader our collaboration, the more successful the organization or the nation will be. No one is an island. No one can survive on its own. Governing the serious games of society is another blog post. If we look at governance, if we look at the rules and regulations that are in place that make or underlie the rule of law, we come to the metaphor of a board game. There we also have rules and regulations. We have players and we have an aim of the game. And we immediately see that there are different games. That there are good games and not so good games, and bad games. Monopoly, the board game Monopoly, is certainly one of the bad games. Pretty early in the unfolding of the game, you see that who has the rich estate will eventually win. And the rest of the play is the agony of one player after the other dropping out, being bankrupt, until one player has all the property and all the money. In contrast to that, the game of the year 1995, The Settle of Catan, is a board game which engages all players from the very beginning to the very end. And in the unfolding of the game, everybody has the right expectation to come out as the winner. And the winner only wins by a margin. But that game is fun. It creates flow. It really is an enjoyable game. My last aspect. Change is easy. That comes as a surprise. We always say, oh, change is so difficult. No, change is easy from the perspective of a system scientist. We can look at thousands and thousands of projects piled on one another. Well, that may be one approach to change. It's certainly more qualified than adapting from one catastrophe to the next, to project management. But what we are looking at is systemic change. Another blog post of the European School of Governance. First order systemic change is looking at leverage. The rules and regulations I've talked about earlier are such a leverage point. If you arrange them wisely, we get better games, we get better outcomes. We get better projects. We don't cascade it to the project manager to come up with a good project. We can provide a corridor where desirable projects deliver towards a desirable outcome. And the second order systemic change, which I call mind shift. It's like a picture puzzle. If you look up here, what do you see? If you look up here, so that is beyond your gadgets. If you look up here, you either see what? Do you see a duck looking to the left? Or do you see a rabbit looking to the right? Two images. No line on the paper changed, but it's either or. In the first instance, you see one of the two images, and you stick with it. And then you go on, go back to your gadget, and say, oh, there's a rabbit, or there's a duck. But then I come and tell you, oh, there's another image. If you see the rabbit, there's a duck. If you see the duck, there's a rabbit. It's that one word that changes that. That changes your perception in a split second. It is the stories and narratives. It is the deep culture, the elements that make our culture that help us to see the one image or the other image. Whether we live in the perfect world, as our indicators suggest, or we live in an endangered world, as a shift of perspective would tell us. I come to the close of my presentation, and some of you may recognize this flower. It is the flower of courage. Yes, it takes courage to stand up here and to talk about love, to talk about the common good on a forum for foreign direct investment. But I believe unless we learn again to listen to our heart and understand, we shouldn't touch money. It wouldn't be to a better end. But as soon as we discover purpose, listening to our heart, and then go to see where we put our money, that bears strong chance to make the world truly a better place. Thank you very much.